The Process, a podcast about creativity and experimental music. In the world of experimental music, outcomes and accolades for creators can be uncertain and at times seem far and few between. Therefore, creators and practitioners of experimental music must embrace the one thing they will always have complete control over: the process. This podcast aims to understand this creative process by listening to new works and discussing them with their creators. Each episode focuses on one creator and their music. Understanding how and why they create can inform aspiring creatives and help audiences better understand and navigate experimental music. I'm Dr. Doug Bielmeyer, and I'll be your host as we explore the world of experimental music, creativity, and the human need to find purpose in their world and lives. This is The Process.
Surface.
The 1452 West Coast service to Birmingham Street is now boarding on platform 5. That's the 1452 West Coast service to Birmingham Street, now boarding on platform 5.
Got that feeling in the water and the sunlight. Wanna clouds and now the final and the answer, floating on the surface of the sea. Floating on the shore, Sunday morning goes away. Floating in the morning light, outside the window of the day, deep beneath the shore, floating on the wind. Sunday morning, Sunday morning, Sunday morning, got away. Oh, our train is here?
I tend to make music when I play. Play meaning I pretend. I pretend I'm another instrument, or I'm a band, or I'm an orchestra,
Or a trumpet.
or a trumpet, or anything. And I vocalize. And usually, if something is recording, then I can kind of get into a flow of things and actually, work on an assignment, whatever that may be.
Right.
But that came out of, I think, partly it was being in bands. I grew up in Western Canada, and while I was going to school there, I played in bands. Usually had actually the same collaborators.
Yeah.
That's the social aspect of making music. But I think I have a very solitary part of making music that's been important for me.
Yeah.
And especially since I moved away from home and have been living in Toronto for a long time now, I kind of tend to just sort of go into my own fantasy a bit, and just hum, do, like, and pretend there's a band playing, there's a concert on, there's an album being recorded. I used to do that as a kid, and I still do that, and I find that's how there's actually a kind of flow of ideas. Because if I start to think, well, this is going to be a verse, this will be a chorus, this will be good for a proper, mature album that I'm going to make, it gets a bit too serious. So I like to just, play first. Yeah.
What do you do then? You're vocalizing? Do you voice memo it? Do you record it? Can you remember it? Because for me, if I started vocalizing something, I'm like, oh, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I should write that later. And then when I sit down later, I'm like, what was I doing? So what do you do? Do you have a strategy to kind of capture those ideas?
I voice memo it for this interpretation project. My wife Siki and I were in London, so we were in a new environment. We were living abroad, and she was studying there. I was carrying around a Zoom recorder.
Sure.
I thought about this today. You remember in Home Alone 2, Kevin McAllister is just carrying around his little portable recorder, and he's recording anything. He's recording, TV commercials. He's recording people singing, and then makes use of it.
Right, it's a plot device for later. Later in the movie. Absolutely, yeah.
and that's kind of how I treat recordings too. I started recording either with my phone or with with the field recorder, just anything, whether it's my humming or it's street performers making music or something on the radio. It all served as fodder for some idea. And then if I do get into a kind of maybe almost entranced state of just humming something, and sometimes 20 minutes passes and I'm still humming it, it's nice to have it on recording. Then I can go back to it and see if anything is actually useful. And that's how a lot of the material on this ended up on this album. It's actually, a lot of it is preserved voice memos, these sketches as the skeleton underneath, and there are some augmentations that happen afterwards. But if I don't end up recording it, then my hope is that it comes back, because our thoughts are they tend to be so circular, and if there's some pattern that's sitting there somewhere, tomorrow I'll loop back to it somehow.
So what do you do then? You've got them on your Zoom recorder. Do you go to a DAW? Do you go to a computer and start manipulating? Or, what's the next step?
Yeah, it depends on what I've done with the field recording. A lot of the field recordings on this album, I'm already doing something in the moment with my voice on top of what's going on top of the train announcement. Or I think this chunk of audio I starts out with Past the Jogging with me playing the piano at a train station. In London, they have some train station pianos for public use. And so the environment is already captured, and my presence in the environment is already part of it. Whether I want to do something with it afterwards, it sort of depends. If I feel like it could use an augmentation of some kind, then I go to a DAW and use as technologically minimal a tool as I can to get my idea across, because technology and I don't play well. So I use the default presets. I will use silverware, whatever, as percussion, that kind of thing. And I did a lot of that on this record, because I actually wanted it to be just sort of like a child, taking things a little bit, as opposed to a person who has a studio at their disposal, which, for what it's worth, when we were there, when we were abroad, I didn't really bring anything. I got a little MIDI keyboard. I had that portable recorder, and that was it. The rest had to happen kind of in the box.
Do you think that's an advantage or a disadvantage? And I could go either way. I could see having less just actually being really freeing, because it's kind of like you have to either sort of create it live, or, like you said, find some spoons, find some auxiliary percussion, and kind of create.
Yeah, it probably depends on what you're doing. For me, lately, I found stripping everything back to be an advantage, because a lot of the idea for this record has to do with the tension, I think, between the fantasy world. Some of it is actually sort of the fantasy world of just thoughts, but a lot of it is the musical fantasy world, and the final product, the realization of that fantasy, and the fact that it's never like the fantasy. It never ends up being, what I have in my head, and maybe you can relate to that. And I think capturing that, the struggle to actually kind of take what's in the mind and try to put it together, and ultimately fail to put it together the way that it sounds, and actually document that failure, document the attempts, the sketches, then going back to the idea some other day and trying it with a different environment, different instruments, is is what was exciting for me, is kind of documenting the struggle and ultimate, I think, defeat of the fantasy and the triumph of the real world, where you can't really ever realize the creative fantasy completely.
Sure. And it feels very much that way. It feels that we're in this very corporeal, very ordinary place, and then we're swept away into these lush sort of, musical dreams,
Right.
And,
there's some ambition. There's some pretentious reaching for something, but it just doesn't quite get there.
Got that feeling in the water and the sunlight. Wanna clouds and now the final and the answer floating on the surface of the sea. Floating on the shore, Sunday morning goes away. Floating in the morning light, outside the window of the day, deep beneath the shore, floating on the wind. Sunday morning, Sunday morning, Sunday morning, got away. Our train is here?
When I set out to record something that year, to create something, I didn't know what I was going to make. I knew that it would have to incorporate some field recordings. I knew that I didn't want it to be only music. I wanted some part of it to be ideas that I was working through, that Siki was working through as she was going through her studies. We were sort of, some themes were emerging from what we were both reading about the environment, about the impact. By the way, her master's is on was on global mental health, so we got to learn a lot about she directly and me by proxy about the impact of globalization on all kinds of things, on the environment, on people's well-being, on how they interpret their distress, their various moods. So I wanted some of those ideas to kind of percolate in this, but I didn't have an idea of what it was going to be. That's why it turned out to be such a strange kind of entity. Yes, you have this excerpt from episode 4. There are 6 episodes altogether. I thought maybe it was going to be a podcast that would, have speech alternating with music. I don't even know if it's that. It is kind of a concept album. It's kind of a memoir. It's sort of almost an ethnographic document, but we're at the center of it. So it's an ethnography of our minds and kind of a time capsule of where we're at and what we're thinking about. And then the environment that's kind of revolving around our heads. And
what was it about? Was it just the medium that you were really interested in, or was it something that you knew from the start you wanted it to sort of be a longer form presentation?
I mean, I recorded thousands of hours of material, and I had to whittle it down to just a few hours essentially. But it did start becoming a bit of a story with chapters. I think the chapters actually sort of corresponded to the seasons. We were there for almost an entire year, and there was something cyclical about how it ended. And but that's for episode 6. But I think there was just enough material there that it had to become longer. I couldn't really condense it. This is where I could talk a little bit about what I do for a living, day to day. I'm a psychiatrist, and I do psychotherapy, and particularly psychoanalytic psychotherapy.
Great.
And psychoanalysis and psychoanalytic therapy tend to be long-term, mostly, and they take time, and the themes that evolve over that time, they evolve through the process of most kind of painstakingly working through various ideas that are maybe directly hinting at the themes. Other times they're actually obfuscating the really important themes.
Right.
So that working through actually had to be captured.
Mm-hmm.
It also, I think it kind of became a piece of, I don't know if the word is process, the term is process art, or maybe self-referential art, but essentially it became a piece about itself, about its own creation.
Right.
So it had to essentially take place over the seasons.
Right.
The way that it was put together kind of had to be documented with some steps there. There were, of course, some steps missing because I had to, omit certain things, but it needed time.
Talk a little bit about what we're hearing. It begins with, like you mentioned, I don't know if you said you were jogging or not, but it sounds like you were exercising in some way and kind of vocalizing.
Yes, jogging and vocalizing a theme that had appeared in a previous episode. And I was stuck in that previous episode. I was stuck on, I think, the chorus for that. It's a very sing-songy kind of, it sounds like a song. And I didn't know what the chorus was going to be. And I kept getting stuck and trying different things, and nothing worked. And that was all documented in a previous episode. And here I am jogging and something occurs to me. And I think that actually happened in real time. And I thought, I'm going to try this.
There's the melody, or there's the form.
There's And the next step is going to this train station where they had public pianos. A, it was a way to get access to a piano that was free.
Right.
B, it was a way to put myself in a scary position, because playing live, especially playing something that I'm not prepared to play, it was quite improvised. That was a bit nerve-wracking. So that
were
was
there listeners? Did you have an audience there at the train station?
I mean, most people were just going about their day, but there were some people. There are always people who gather and they'll listen, and I think that's actually part of the experience of being at Euston Station where the pianos were.
From the piano that you're playing in the train station, it becomes I think that's the first time I'm hearing, at least in this episode, that you're entering the dream world.
Yeah, you're right. That's the dream being realized for a moment. And then it turns out it's time to catch the train. I think Siki actually interrupts and says, our train is here. And so the dream just sort of pops like a bubble, and we have to go on to the next thing. And while we're at Richmond Park, we're looking at the deer and talking about, we're talking about the sanctity of nature, and how to respect nature, you actually have to have some fear of it, which then ties into some themes around mental health as well, which kind of get explored later on, about the easy approach we have to diagnosing people and just giving them quick treatments, when we're actually potentially dealing with something very mysterious still, when people are mad, the old term madness, which could mean so many different things. It could mean being distressed. It could mean being in a fantasy world. It could mean being out of touch with reality temporarily, or really kind of deeply for the long haul. It could mean hearing voices, and maybe the parallel there to, I think, a person who's creating things. If you're a musical person, you're probably going to be hearing things. They're not always going to be like hallucinations, but you're going to be hearing intrusive obsessions in your head.
Yes.
And it's going to be hard to get rid of them, and sometimes it'll cause distress, and sometimes you'll be distracted from the real world, from reality. So I think there's some commentary on that. There's also the commentary that's here is very much of the moment. It's often not nuanced. It's often kind of a representation of my I don't know, I'm making some kind of proclamation to Siki about sanctity and nature, and you know, and
kind of how we take for granted some ceremonies now, because and how important ceremony might be, and maybe how we've minimized it. Yeah.
Yes, and you know, it's a little bit like a, I don't know, like a Joe Rogan podcast where people have such a
healthier, hopefully a little bit healthier than those.
Hopefully, they have such an urge to speak their mind and voice their opinion.
Yeah.
But I actually wanted to document the voicing of the mind that is actually quite erratic. And when I listen back to it, I'm thinking, what the hell? What was I talking about?
Right.
Why did I take such a strong stance on whatever? And I think it was nice to actually have all of this erratic human stuff represented. Yeah. And so I wanted to do that musically, but also as far as thoughts and ideas go, that when we communicate, especially when we communicate with people we know well, our loved ones, you know, we just say so much shit. We say all kinds of shit. You know?
Right. But the trust to be able to take that inner voice and just experiment out loud and say crazy shit, and knowing that the person will be like, I think you have the wrong take on that, and not, you know, run away screaming, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, it kind of ends in a very sort of silly way about, you know, the deer's always, why are their butts always facing us? Which I feel, which I feel like is every deep, meaningful conversation usually ends with something very mundane about, like, you know, like, why is the deer pointing its butt at us? You know, that
for sure. Yeah, we were deeped out. We had to had to just have fun at that point. And I think the music that starts playing then is it's quite folky. My dad actually recorded the balalaika for that one, so I had an idea. It was also part of a theme that begins its life in a previous episode. And I said to my dad, this sounds to me like folk music. It's going to come from, you know, from nature. So I want the Slavic balalaika on it. So and then I played, I think, the kazoo on it. He really stares you down. He's so dominant. Maybe there's something about the fear of nature that's essential to being able to coexist with it. Like I'm thinking of all the myths, any kind of pagan myths, where forests had their spirits that they weren't categorically evil, but they were they could really hurt you.
Yes. Like this deer.
Yeah, this deer. There's no morals on the deer, but you should be afraid of it. And that goes hand in hand with sanctity. That things become sacred when you're afraid of them.
Yeah. You can't get close.
You can't. So now that the world is a global village or whatever, there's nothing sacred. We pay lip service to people's ceremonies, but I think...
And you can explain everything somehow.
Yeah. I mean, when we're like serving up psychedelics in a lab or in a makeshift living room in a hospital, that's maybe a fucked up interference with nature or with cultures that are not our own.
Somehow their butts are always towards you.
That's true. Why make things in the first place? I think sometimes.
Right. Well, why do anything? Right. Why get out of bed in the morning? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, this is a good question, because it is a very demanding listen for anyone who'd be willing to actually just even sample it.
Sure.
It's 4 hours altogether. It's 6 episodes. They will be released sequentially, so there'll be some
Great.
gaps
Yeah,
between the
yeah.
releases
You can kinda
every
listen.
2-3 months or so. So there'll be some time to maybe digest each episode. But there are parts of the episodes that are, kind of plodding. They're slower.
Yeah.
There are conversations that are kind of lengthy, and they're exploring something. You don't know exactly what it is, and maybe a couple episodes later, the theme comes back and becomes a little bit more lucid.
Right.
There are silences.
Yeah.
There are outtakes. There are sketches. So I think the audience is, it's a challenging thing for the audience.
Well, maybe what are your expectations for them? Do you, like you said, I think it kind of sounds like you expect them to maybe listen to one episode this week, and then the next week, it's kind of serial, so they can kind of ingest it over a longer period of time.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would have to be done stepwise. You can't listen to all 6. I couldn't listen to all 6 all at once. But you were talking about trust, actually. Trust when you're with someone close to you,
Sure.
to say things and let it land and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's a very intimate record, because it is putting trust in an audience to receive the raw stuff that's coming out of your head.
Right.
And there are parts of our lives that are quite intimate. We're having conversations about having kids, about our fears, our various kinds of anxieties, and it's here. It's on this record. So maybe there's a bit of a voyeuristic experience for an audience, but it's also kind of the hope for a trusting relationship with someone who'd be willing to get into that world. I would also hope that it would maybe inspire people to do that with their worlds.
Sure.
I'd be so interested to hear somebody do something like this, or more, do it better, do it more, ambitiously, to actually just share their stuff in an unpolished way, and their attempts to sort of meet that fantasy with some kind of, I don't know, with the tools that they have at hand, whatever they have in the moment. That would be kind of interesting to hear.
Well, this has been fantastic to hear about this sort of excerpt from episode 4, and just the whole process of the interpretation of voices. A 6-part series coming soon. Before I let you go, why don't you tell us a little bit more about where we can, first of all, get a hold of this podcast or this album, and then also where we can learn more about you and your music.
Yeah. It's going to be released starting November 7th. That will be the first episode. And then again, every 2-3 months, we'll have more episodes. And it will be released on a Toronto-based label that I'm very excited about. It's called People Places Records.
Great.
And it's a label full of really, I think, eclectic and original art. So it's a label worth checking out in general. But they will be putting these episodes out, at least the first couple, and we'll see what happens. But they'll be putting them out sequentially, starting November 7th. As far as I have a website, YvanSheremetieff.net. Wait, is it Yvan? I have a website. It's Sheremetieff.net.
Okay.
Just my last name.
We'll have it in the show notes, so people. It's a tough last name. It's like Bielmeier. It's kind of tough.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's just another challenge for the audience.
Right.
Yeah, and SoundCloud, Bandcamp, Instagram, all those usual things. I'm accessible there, and I'd be very interested to hear some feedback from people, just their experiences of this thing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks to Yvan for sharing his time and music with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please check out other episodes in the series. And as always, like, subscribe, or leave a comment on your preferred podcasting app. I'm Dr. Doug Bielmeier, and this has been The Process.